Yeah, look, I'm happy enough to support this extra capital going towards the LDA, but I would rather that the LDA was something other than what it is. I believe, and we've argued for some time, it should be a fully fledged state construction company. And that is the only way we are going to reach the level of output of social and affordable housing necessary to address the absolutely dire housing crisis that we are facing. And I think it will probably need a lot more than the government is currently proposing to put into the LDA. I would be interested to hear the answer to Deputy O'Brien's questions in terms of what actual firepower it has to do what it claims it's going to do. But in either event, I mean, so far the record's not great as far as I'm concerned with the LDA. It was set up in 2018, I think. It was legislated for in 2021. It has delivered, I think, around, the Minister can confirm, around 1,000 units in that time. Not great, really, is it? You know, when you consider there are, in reality, when you take all the HAP transfer lists and so on, that there's well in excess of 100,000 households still on the social housing list. Many, many tens of thousands of people who can't afford the private market prices, either rent or purchase prices of the private market, but who aren't eligible for social housing because they're over the threshold, who therefore need cost rental or genuinely affordable purchase. So 1,000 since 2018, not great. And as I understand it, again, the Minister can confirm precisely what he thinks the LDA is going to do, but as I understand it, believes, or it is targeted to get 14,000 homes built between 2024 and 2028. Now again, against the background of what we actually need, the scale of what we need, and we still haven't got the revised targets for following the Commission, the Housing Commission report, which finally confirmed what many of us have been saying for a long time, is that the Housing for All targets were woefully inadequate and were roughly half of what we actually need. Half. So we're going to have to double the targets. In reality, to about 60 to 70,000 houses a year are going to be necessary in order to meet the targets. And as the Housing Commission also said, we need to dramatically increase the proportion of housing that is social and affordable. And that should be fairly obvious in that the current market prices are too expensive, probably for about 60 to 70% of ordinary working people. You know, you'd want to be in the top 20 or 30% of earners really to afford what's out there in the market. So in some shape or form, we are going to need to subsidise, I would say, more than half. Probably around 60% of the housing that is going to be constructed would be my estimate. So it's going to either have to be social or affordable. So that means more than doubling the Housing for All social and affordable housing targets. And how is that going to be done? How is that going to be done? I mean, Cairn Homes and Glenveigh are not going to do it. They're just not big enough. You know, the few big firms, and they're not that big, they're pretty small really, they don't have the construction capacity to build what we need to build. And most of our builders are small builders. Now, it just seems to me obvious that unless we establish a construction company, and the only people who are going to do this are the state, who else is going to do it? that really has scale and that can get economies of scale to build on that sort of level the 30 to 35,000 social and affordable houses that we need, we are not going to solve this housing crisis. So that's what should be going on, and in my mind that means a hell of a lot more investment, and it means expanding to the LTA to have its own workforce, direct labour units, and to be directly involved in the training of apprentices and scaling up the training. You know, people say it takes time, by the way, you know, it takes time to get people trained in the trades. That's true, but actually, you know, apprentices in year one go on site, in year one. So once you actually start to recruit large numbers of apprentices, you have people on site. And if apprentices were paid a bit better than they are now, because they're on sub-minimum wage for year one and year two, but if we paid them decently and really made it attractive to go and work for a state construction company, you know, so we start to think about a state construction company that looks a bit like the ESB, where, you know, these were the jobs people wanted. It was a good job, it was well paid, you were going to get a pension. That would be an attractive option to bring young people into a construction company, could really build the social and affordable housing we need in scale, and you would cut out for the state construction company the profit margins which add to the cost which the private companies inevitably are going to impose in any project. Last point I just want to make, Minister, you know, the stuff that you have delivered is, it's not, what's the word? I'm not optimistic when I look at the prices of it as to where, the extent to which this is going to help many of the cohorts that it's meant to help. Shanganagh is the biggest delivery, in my area, is the biggest delivery that the LDA has completed or almost completed. 600 houses. Now, we fought long and hard to get that site developed for social and affordable housing. We had to fight against the original plans for that, some of that to be private. We eventually won the argument that it should be all social and affordable housing. But the first units have been delivered there now. I'm delighted to see the social units are being allocated. That's fantastic. And the people moving into them are absolutely delighted. But there's only a third of the 600 are social units. No houses, all apartments. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with apartments, but it's interesting that of the houses that are being built, none of the social units are houses. So already there's that kind of segregation being built into the development, which is just wrong, plain wrong, and the prices are not terribly affordable. €330,000. And I understand, maybe the Minister knows a bit about this, that for a relatively small sum we could have knocked another 10% off those prices. The figure I heard floating around was for an extra million or so, we could have brought those prices down to about 300,000. Instead they're 330, and what that means is single income working families is going to be, you'd have to be earning a lot of money. You'd have to be earning over €8,000 a year. So single income people, and that is also true of the cost rental, where the cost rents are $1,200 a month for a one bedroom, $1,500 for a two bedroom. That's not cheap. That's not cheap. It's cheaper than the absolutely insane market in our area, where it's $2,500 a month, but it's still not cheap if you're a single earner. If you're a council worker, outdoor council worker, for example, you're not going to be able to afford $1,200 a month if you're on your own. There's no way you're going to be able to afford that. But you may well be over the threshold for social housing. So you're banjaxed. So the rents are too high for the cost rental. And I think that's because the LDA is still, to a very significant degree, benchmarking against the private market. Even where it's a discount on the private market, it's benchmarking, its starting point is a relationship with the private market rather than what is actually affordable for people.
Garmagod Las Concorda, and firstly just like to thank the deputies for their contributions, and also glad to see that we have no dissent or those opposing the amendments being brought forward. The additional funds will secure the delivery of the LDA's 2024 to 2028 business plan, where we have projected delivery of up to 12,900 homes by 2028. And a large pipeline of further direct delivery homes is being developed for completion in the period from now until 2028-2029, with major projects at various stages from design to planning and pre-construction. And this pipeline currently includes over 10,000 homes and will involve a heightening level of construction on state lands. If you look at Project Tussie initiatives, which aims to complete the development of housing projects on private land, which has planning permission, but where delivery has stalled due to viability or affordable levels. Through this initiative and subject to funding, the LDA expects to deliver up to 8,000 homes by 2028, in addition to those planned for delivery on its existing portfolio of state-owned land and other acquired land. And this additional funding will allow the LDA to enter into required commitments to secure the delivery of these direct delivery and Project Tussie homes over the lifetime of the business plan. And for the purpose of the LDA Act, which was originally provided up to 2.5 billion euros in capital for the LDA, and that comprised of 1.25 billion euros of funding from the Irish Strategic Infrastructure Fund and an additional 1.25 billion euros of borrowing. And in order to support the significant increase in the ambition of the LDA, which is being envisaged under Housing for All to deliver, as I said, 1,900 homes over the lifetime of the plan, we need to ensure that we can provide additional capital in that regard. And in March 2028, an additional 2.5 billion euros was allocated. That comprised again of 1.25 billion euros from the proceeds of disposable and direct investment held by the National Treasury Management Agency, and another additional 1.25 billion euros that was raised by the LDA through the performance of certain functions to the provisions of cost rental affordable accommodation, and also to implement the budget 2025 decision to provide a further 1.25 billion from the LDA. Government has introduced another amendment to the NTMA's Act to provide for this, and this further 1.25 billion will be from the proceeds of the disposable direct investment held by the NTA. So the additional capital will provide for in budget 2025 will ensure that the LDA has access to a total of 6.25 billion euros in capital, and most importantly, it's well positioned to provide affordable and cost rental housing in communities all over Ireland, and to support the delivery of the National Planning Framework well into the lifetime of 2028 to 2029 business plan. To date, I know the question was raised, the LDA has drawn down 1.25 billion euros from the Irish Strategic Investment Fund, where 100 million was established in March 2021, with 250 million in February 2023, 275 million in April 23, 300 million in November 2023, and 325 million in May 2025. The LDA has yet to avail of its borrowing powers. We talked about, Deputy Boyd Barrett talked about what has been delivered, what has been achieved, and what has been committed to. And in 2023, the LDA delivered 650 cost rentals and 200 affordable from sale homes in Cork, Dublin, Waterford, Wicklow and Meath. And to date in 2024, the LDA has delivered 690 homes through Project Tussie, and is also in partnership with local authorities on lands like Shangana, where the first 246 affordable homes, 195 of them are cost rental, 51 affordable purchase, were launched in September of this year, and with a further 35 social housing units to be completed by the end of this year. What I can say in relation to the government and now making legislative provision for the LDA to access the 6.25 billion euros in capital, which will be split between equity capital, debt and other sources relating to the performance of certain legislative functions relating to the provision of both cost rental and affordable accommodation, the development of public lands, provision of socially integrated housing and engagement with local authorities. This business plan is currently in line with prevailing market conditions, the wider economic context, but also further funding needs of the LDA, and that certainly will be kept under continuous review by officials on the future funding working group and the Housing for All investment subcommittee, and we will do everything possibly to ensure that the LDA is adequately resourced and continues its essential work.
Like, we're putting all this extra billions into the LDA, and it's just to deliver the existing plan. Is that what you're telling us? The existing plan. So this is not linked to what everybody knows has to happen, and which the government know themselves has to happen, which is a dramatic upscaling of the targets necessary, which inevitably means a dramatic upscaling of the social and affordable housing targets, although it is worth mentioning, something much to my annoyance, that the LDA is not, well, actually you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the legislation around the LDA cannot potentially allow it to build private housing as well, although we've had some commitments after much argument that it'll all be social and affordable, but I wonder, particularly when there's references to things like, you know, future financing commitments or requirements, you begin to wonder where this heads if we don't have a clear sort of mandate for the LDA to be about building social and affordable housing on, and as Deputy O'Callaghan said, assembling the land, creating a public land bank on which we can build it, and therefore build it at a reasonable price, but that this extra money should be linked surely to plans to increase the output of what the LDA is going to deliver. So can you say anything about that? Or, I mean, I understand you're reading off your notes, Minister, and maybe these are questions to Minister Bryan. I don't know who knows the answers to this, but like, if all this extra money is going into the LDA, you would have thought it would be in the current climate, and after the Housing Commission report and the SRI and everybody, Uncle Tom Cobley and all, acknowledging that we have to dramatically increase the output, the LDA surely is going to be, is not just sticking to the plan, or is it? Is this it? Because it's woefully inadequate. So maybe you could just elaborate a little bit more. Is this it for the LDA between now and 2028?
If we were doing nothing, Deputy Boyd Barrett, then we would be criticised for not investing in the LDA, which is a crucial vehicle to deliver direct delivery of homes. And it's really important that we can continue to invest in relation to their pipeline of projects. And I mentioned some of the completions, some of the achievements that they've completed to date. We are currently, finalising the National Plan and Framework. There will be revised structural housing targets. We're looking at new revision under Housing for All, and they will all be associated with how we can actually best deliver both affordable cost rental and social homes. And the expectation would be that we would raise and elevate the ambition of the LDA also. And as I said earlier, through initiatives like Project Hussey, we would expect to deliver up to 8,000 homes by 2028, in addition to those planned for delivery from existing portfolio of state-owned or other occupied land. So the LDA are actively working all across the country, looking to engage with local authorities, and there will be no shortage of effort to try and ensure that we can maximise our output in that regard. And we have seen in recent months, as commencements have increased, we have seen a real sharp incline in the supply, and we need to continue to do that. And the LDA are a crucial vehicle in how we actually deliver and meet our revised housing targets, but also to ensure that we have an accelerated delivery programme, because the LDA themselves are working through a framework with all the key developers, and access to these types of developers through an accelerated programme is really important, and that's what we want to continue to do our efforts.
Margaret.
Margaret, Indana.